This is the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast. Hello and welcome on the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show. It's me and Eileen B.
Hello.
We have Shona Floyd in the studio, who has come all the way from Peterborough to talk about her daughter, Tasha, who sadly passed away. We're going to talk about Tasha and about the charity work that you do. Shona, we're so honoured that you've come in. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Just to find out about the beginning, when Tasha was first diagnosed with a brain tumour, what happened?
She was at boarding school and she was getting headaches, walking a bit weird, falling asleep. But because it was GCSE exam year, it was just put down to GCSE exam stress and nothing was done about it. She came home because she'd finished school and she was going to start college. And I took her to get her eyes tested. And then we never left hospital after that. She went straight from there to the Royal Free, had a shunt put in for massive intracranial pressure. MRI scan showed that she had a tumour on her brainstem. And within a week of having the shunt put in, she went blind. She had less than 10% vision. And then because she was 16, we were taken to Great Ormond Street, where we met an amazing radio-oncologist who told us that Tash had a year to live, and that she would be starting palliative radiotherapy the next week. Tash had 6 weeks of palliative radiotherapy and lived for another 8 years.
Wow. How old was Tasha when she was diagnosed?
16, so it's very young.
Yeah.
And quite difficult, I think, because you've got all those teenage hormones.
And it's like exam sort of time.
I don't blame the doctors in any way. I don't think that they missed anything. I think that they just didn't think outside the box.
What did they think it was at first?
The doctor said it was exam stress. It was the optician that
picked up.
So he
just said, oh, wow.
Tash actually went with some of the guys from the Brain Tumour charity to the, I'm not quite sure what it's called, they're all going to be sitting there laughing at me now, like the Optical Council, and spoke to the guys there and said it was an optician that picked up the fact that she had this raised intracranial pressure, not the doctors. The doctors missed that. So had I not taken her to have her eyes tested, she would have been dead within a week. The pressure was so great. So the opticians do an amazing job.
Yeah.
And she had, if we'd had a HeadSmart card, she's still going to have a brain tumour, but perhaps she wouldn't have lost her sight because perhaps the intracranial pressure wouldn't have got so great. And then she'd still have that initial diagnosis, but not the total darkness that went with it. And HeadSmart, when Tasha helped launch it, I think it was 13 weeks was the average waiting time for diagnosis. Now they're amazing. They're down to 6.7 weeks. And I know the guys at the Brain Tumour charity are really pushing to try and get it down to under 5 weeks, which would be amazing. Tash used to say that she thought that people didn't take brain tumours seriously because you don't see the damage that they cause. You don't see the devastation that's left behind. And when you look at the young ambassadors, they've all got something, you know. Some of them might have mobility issues or hearing issues or sight issues or speech issues. Brain tumours cause so much damage because of this delay in diagnosis. And they're normally lifelong disabilities that the people are left with.
What were the things that Tasha struggled with?
Tiredness. Yeah. Really tired all the time, really sleepy. Mobility actually improved because obviously the swelling went down. But obviously she struggled because she moved from a sighted world into a more dimly lit one. So she was learning to live with this brain tumour diagnosis and the fact that she couldn't see. She never stopped smiling. Never, always. If she couldn't do something, she'd just stop, try again, and then get it done.
She's got a really beautiful smile.
She has. It lights up the room.
Yeah.
It really did. And she had this phrase, and she used to say that she was on a bus to a town called Deniability.
Oh.
And she quite liked it there, and she thought she'd probably stay. And she did. And she never came back from Deniability. Yeah. She stayed there. You can live with a brain tumour, but as you know yourself, it's one of the most difficult things to do. And when all your friends are getting married or driving or going to university, and actually your life is in limbo because you've got this condition, you've got this disease doing things to you that don't allow you to partake in everyday life.
Yeah. Tasha, she wanted to get more involved with the awareness side, so she got involved with HeadSmart.
Yep.
And just to explain to people what HeadSmart do.
As a young ambassador, they use the young ambassadors to go and talk to people in positions. So we spoke to the Speaker of the House of Commons. We went to the House of Lords. Tash helped launch the 5-year strategy at the House of Lords, talking to people that are in the medical profession, but also making it wider. So members of the public, getting them to look at people like Tasha and the other young ambassadors and see that brain tumours strike all ages. And it is the biggest killer in the under 40s in this country. to get them to look at how they could stop this from happening. So if one parent picked up one Head Smart card at school and thought, do you know, actually, my child's fine, but your child isn't, excuse me, then that's one child that maybe isn't going to have a disability because of their brain tumour, that maybe they are going to be picked up earlier, and making people just more aware that a funny gait or sight or speech not maybe developing as perhaps it ought to, they're not always warning signs of brain tumours, but go and get it checked out.
Yeah. Tasha was then meeting quite a lot of celebrities and stuff where she
all the time,
she must have enjoyed that.
She did. She was a little bit of a hussy, actually, when it came to throwing herself into the celebrity path and lifestyle. We went round to Richard Attenborough's house for afternoon tea.
Oh, yeah.
As you do. She met Graham Norton. Alan Carr was stunningly lovely. Oh, gosh, Noel Edmonds invited her on to go and see Deal or No Deal, and then go and watch him film something else. Carol Vorderman, or as my husband would say, the lovely Carol Vorderman.
You had someone that you liked quite a lot.
Martin Kemp.
He is nice, isn't he?
I went under duress. It's one of those things. He was on my wall in the 80s. I felt I ought to go and see what he's like in person. Wow. And he was just as lovely in person. But he was genuinely lovely as well, and wanted to help and was listening and tried to help get lottery funding for the brain tumour charity. But it's when people like him, he's had 2 brain tumours, he's got a metal plate in his head. When the public see that it isn't just the ordinary people, extraordinary people suffer from brain tumours as well. It's about making them visible because they're hidden.
Where Tasha was doing all this charity and just getting the awareness, and she was involved in a lot, how is she dealing with tiredness and stuff then? That must have been... Did she find it exhausting, or actually she was just like, this is just, I'm in heaven?
I think it was heaven. She had an indomitable spirit. She didn't let the brain tumour get in her way of life. And that was her mantra was, I'm going to go to bed and I'm blind and I have a brain tumour. When I wake up in the morning, I open one eye, then I open the other, and nope, I'm still blind and I still have a brain tumour. What's the point in crying about it?
Yeah.
I can't change my life. I just have to live the one that I've got. And at 16, to be so mature,
very.
That wasn't words we put into her mouth. That was what she believed.
You know, I'm really similar in that I wake up every day and I say, I'm partially blind on both in parts of the eye, and I always say, right, when my eyes open, this is the day. I actually do that every day, and I wait and I look and I think, oh, not today.
Tash had this thing where we've got a lovely hairdresser called Anya, and and another one called Rachel, and they would cut her fringe, and then they would say, open your eyes.
Oh.
And Tash would say, oh, no, still can't see.
Exactly, yeah.
But it would be like an ongoing joke with them, and they were just lovely. And there was little things like that I think make, and you must know, every day livable. Because if you are miserable and you do allow it to get you down, life's too short, as Tash proved.
I think you get down, but you pick yourself up very quickly. So you get that moment of dread and then you think, right, back up again.
Or silly things like Tash. I walked into the living room one day and Tash is sat on the floor and she's cajoling this object. And she's going, come on then, come here. Come see me then. And I said, what on earth are you doing? She said, I'm talking to the cat. And I said, that's Dad's sock.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh, for goodness sake. And she picked up and threw the sock and then worked away to the couch. But it's things like that. You can't pity her. There was no pity. It was always laughter.
She took it in her stride.
If she put the eggs in with the potatoes, I used to jokingly say in Tesco's, I'm going to turn you around 3 times and you can find your own way home. And you could see the checkout person slowing down, thinking, am I going to have to phone somebody because this woman's being really mean to this poor disabled child? But they're only poor disabled children if you let them.
Look at it like that, yeah.
If you look at it like that.
Yeah. Oh, she sounds lovely. So just having a look again then. So you've got the Head Smart that you help with, and as you said to me, is that they're looking for people to donate their tumours for research, and that was something that Tasha gave. How does that work?
In this country, we're not very good at donating, and we were incredibly lucky, and we got invited to go to the Institute for Cancer Research somewhere else in Surrey. And we met Professor Chris Jones, who quite sadly is very normal. And I wanted mad Professor Hare, shambolic, but he's very intelligent and quite normal. And he was telling us that for diffuse intrinsic pontine gliomas, which is what Natasha had, when she was diagnosed in 2007, there was little to no research going into those whatsoever. There's more and more research going, but they are, I don't like to use the word rare, but they are rare. We've got around about 20 million young people in this country from 0 to 24 Worldwide, they only have 30 to 36 whole brains and part brains to work with.
That's such a small amount.
Only 30 to 40 children a year get diagnosed with DIPG, diffuse intrinsic pontine gliomas in this country. And in America, it is that 10% more. It's 300 to 400. And parents, sadly, and I understand their grief. I've been there. Graham and I are still going through it. But if people like Chris Jones don't have brains to work with, how on earth are we going to find a cure?
Yeah.
And he showed us the lab, and he showed us, it was fascinating, he showed us the cells, and these cells were moving, and slides. And he was saying that they've now isolated a gene, ACVR1, and 80% of DIPGs have got this ACVR1 gene. 20% present as DIPGs but don't have this ACVR1 gene, so we'll probably need reclassifying, and the DIPGs will be this one with the gene. But if the parents don't make that really hard decision to donate the whole brain, because he was saying donating the tissue is brilliant, but really to get the whole picture, they need the whole brain. They need to see, they need to look at the anatomy of the brain. What else has gone on? Has anything else gone on? And it's not an easy decision, but it wasn't my decision. It wasn't Graham's decision. It was Tasha's.
Is that something you had to say to the surgeons or whoever, that's what you wanted to happen? Or did they ask you those questions? Did you have to say, I'm aware of this and I want this to happen with Tasha Tumour?
Yes, and that's the difficulty. I'm a nurse. I've sent people to the Cambridge Brain Bank. So I knew that this existed, but lots of people don't know that this exists. And when your grief is so great, actually it's not the first thing on your mind.
Of course.
And you also have that relationship with your doctor. Tash had the most amazing consultant called Naomi. Had Naomi said, Tash, I want your brain, you're going to think, is she not going to give me treatment because actually she wants my brain? And you have that conflict. And that is a difficulty that a lot of consultants say. They have that conflict of, we really want your brain, but actually, if I ask you for it, have I lost that trust? You also have the scandals from Alder Hey and Bristol's Children's Hospital where they illegally kept organs many years ago without parents' consent. That damaged, hopefully not irreparably, but that damaged donation because people were thinking, actually, they're just going to take it anyway. Was it easy? No. I would say we approached them. Graham phoned the Cambridge Brain Bank and said, this is my daughter, this is what she'd like to do, what do we need to do? And they give you a 24-hour hotline to ring, and then the funeral undertakers take them into their care, and then they transport them to Cambridge. They do the most amazing job. They cut around the hairline. You cannot see that brain donation has taken place. Your child isn't turned into Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
They're so gentle. And we actually met with the neuropathologist and the clinical nurse specialist afterwards. And I know lots of parents wouldn't want to do this, but they showed us pictures of Tasha's brain and they showed us how aggressive her tumour was. It actually made sense to us to be able to look at that and know what was going on inside her head. Some parents aren't going to be able to do that. In fact, I wouldn't actively encourage it. But coming from a nursing background, for me, I needed to see what was inside my child's head. And Chris Jones at the ICR has already sent off. We met him, and the day before, he'd already sent off his samples from Tasha's brain. And when we were there, they said that 2 others had already requested samples from Tasha's brain. And it's gone on a worldwide database. So researchers in Australia and America, they can also request these samples. And hopefully it will bring a cure or at least something that will help prolong life, because at the moment with DIPGs, from point of diagnosis to point of death is normally 9 to 12 months.
Yeah. If someone now says, I really want to be a part of this, where would they go? To their GP?
Their GP or their clinical nurse specialists, or if they've got a really good working relationship with their oncology team, to speak to them, and they will be able to tell them where their nearest brain bank is. I know Cambridge because obviously it's just down the road from us, but there are others around the country, and they will take the brains, and they do it so nicely. It really isn't anything to be scared of. And I can't put into words the grief that I feel losing a child. Yes, my child was 24 and not 4 years old or 8 years old. They're still your child, regardless of how old they are. And stopping another parent going through what we've been through over the last 8 years, why did she live that long? Maybe her sample will tell us. Maybe her sample will answer a question that Chris has got hanging around, or maybe it will give Chris something else to look at. Maybe somebody in America will take the side and say, that makes perfect sense now. But without Tasha's brain, that could be another 4, 5, 6, 7 years that they're waiting for that answer to come about. So I would say speak to your clinical nurse specialist or the Brain Tumour charity or any of the other charities, and they'll hopefully be able to point you in the right direction.
It's an amazing thing to be a part of. It's like you say, it's not the first thing you think of, but like how you must feel now to know that Tash is helping people going forward. Nothing's stopped where she's left us. She's still here because she's still, her legacy is going to go on now. I really appreciate that you came in.
It's been lovely meeting you both, and thank you for having me.
This is the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.